Christian men have an issue, and it has to do with impropriety when it comes to their power dynamics. This is an overall story of a trend that has been happening in society in general since its inception. But men in positions of power violating people underneath them, vulnerable populations that they have control over, and of course using religion as a conduit to do that. This is just my latest little tweety two on the Christian problem. This one's Arkansas evangelical pastor Anthony Strickland has been sentenced to 10 years in prison for the sexual assault of 11 and 13-year-old sisters who attended his church. Now, this has been going on for a while. It's not about his story though. It's about all the stories that are coming out. This is all recently. LA Catholic Church payouts for clergy abuse top $1.5 billion with new record settlement. More settlements for these major religious groups. And you always have this group of people that are religious or they're sympathetic to religious people, and they'll say oh, well, these aren't true Christians. And it's like, dog, these are the people committing their lives to it. And then they dismiss it as oh, well, yeah, well, sickos will just choose a place where they have access to this. And it's it's both. While, yes, it will attract people for its access and culture of cover-up for people that commit these crimes, it's also obviously part and parcel of the faith itself. It tells you to have submissive attitudes towards men in your life, in your lives, depending on where you're at, especially in a church setting. So I'm not surprised that this happens at all. It's just how can you? I don't think you can have a really good America with the majority of people being Christians. I think it's just a fact. Obviously, as we get more secular, the political splits are getting wider with the people that hold on to this kind of shit. And then there's a capitalist class of people that are in there as well. And then there's the rest of the left, which is basically maybe not anti-capitalist like the normies in general and stuff, but they're definitely more pro-working class, right, than they are pro-billionaire. They just, don't have the equipment to work with it. But this is, when we talk about billionaires and stuff in the billionaire class, this is part of it. LA Catholic Church pays $1.5 billion in new record settlement. Here's another one in a second about 50 Catholic priests in Michigan we'll talk about. The Archdiocese of Los Angeles had previously paid $740 million to victims in various settlements, bringing the total payout to over $1.5 billion. The Heritage Foundation is a prime example, being in the Trump presidency. Huge Christian backing, lots of money tied up in that. And that's for several reasons, of course. Obviously, I think, just straight up tithes from people that go to the church and its tax exemption, but also the systemic legacy of white landowning men being the heads of these churches. And then these descended from European churches that also had a lot of abuse and stuff, which is part of the reason people came over here in the first place, was to escape that shit. And wouldn't you know it, we attracted all the bad ones. Officials have said the church has made great strides to prevent abuse. Well, anything that is more progressive than covering up sexual abuse is going to be a stride forward, sure. More than 300 priests who work in the Archdiocese in Los Angeles have been accused in public records of sexually abusing minors. It's crazy because when I bring this up on Twitter, and under this post, there's 747 comments or whatever, and most of them are yeah, fuck this guy. But there's several people who are yeah, actually, well, look at the teachers. Per capita, teachers do not abuse kids even close to the rate that people in church do. It's not even close. There are more teachers than there are priests and pastors and stuff by a lot, and they do it at a much lower rate per capita. It's crazy. In what could be the closing chapter in a landmark legal battle, the Archdiocese of Los Angeles has agreed to pay $880 million to victims of clergy sexual abuse dating back decades in the largest settlement involving the Catholic Church, which is on top of the former $740 they had been paying out before. Attorneys for 1,353 people who allege that they suffered horrific abuse at the hands of local Catholic priests, reached the settlement after months of negotiations with the Archdiocese. The agreement caps a quarter century of litigation against the most populous archdiocese in the United States. And this is just Los Angeles. You know what I mean? 300 priests in Los Angeles. And we know the East Coast, like it used to be, Boston, New York, shit like that. Obviously, the Baptist churches down south as well. The settlement leaves only a few lawsuits pending against the Church of Los Angeles. Only a few? Wow. These survivors, here's a quote. These survivors have suffered for decades in the aftermath of abuse. Dozens of the survivors have died. They are aging, and many of those with knowledge of the abuse within the church are too. It was time to get this resolved. I mean, obviously way too late. Really, great strides in fixing this. Would you like to list all your systemic changes to prevent and catch this and hold those responsible for it? Yeah, right. An attorney Mike Reck of Jeff Anderson Associates. This is a measure of justice. There can never be full justice. These brave survivors brought it to protect kids in the future. Yeah. Archbishop Jose, why I said Jose. Jose H. Gomez. Jose and the Pussycats. The Pussy Gatos. Approved the settlement, which will be funded by Archdiocese investments, accumulated reserves, bank financing, and other assets. It's so gross that a church has this kind of portfolio. According to the Archdiocese, certain religious orders and others named in the litigation will also cover some of the costs of the settlement. Sorry for every one of these incidents from the bottom of my heart. Aw. My hope is that the settlement will provide some measure of healing for what these men and women have suffered. Yeah. He said it provides just compensation to the survivor victims of these past abuses while also allowing the Archdiocese to continue to carry out our ministries. Yeah. Cool. It allows us to keep doing the things that we're already doing. Sure. Almost 50 Catholic priests in Michigan accused of historic sexual misconduct in new report. Wow. That's my state. State's 5-year investigations is based on interviews with alleged survivors of abuse, more than 1,100 public tips, and millions of computer files. Dozens of senior this is less than 300 at least, from the Catholic Church in Michigan have been accused of historic sexual misconduct dating to the 1950s in a landmark report that state's top prosecutor released Monday. And not a lesson was learned, right? Michigan Attorney General Dana Nessel said that the lengthy report that investigators uncovered extensive allegations. The report, which the state undertook after search warrants they obtained in 2018, is based on interviews with alleged survivors of sexual misconduct, open source media, and more than 1,100 public tips. It accuses 56 people, 48 priests, 3 religious brothers, an apparent this is in quotes, an apparent former religious brother, and 4 deacons. Wow. Most of the alleged misconduct took place in the 70s and 80s. 11 people have been charged in connections with the investigation, leading to 9 convictions. Just like the last case, many of those in the new report are now dead. Some living suspects cannot be prosecuted because of the statute of limitations. Rather than criminal convictions, the report's objective is to provide an acknowledgement to the victims of these alleged crimes and to show the results of the huge 5-year investigation in which officers seized 220 physical boxes of files and searched 3.5 million digital documents. Quote, these reports are important, but not just because we have made promise to the survivors years ago, but because victims, especially in cases like these, where the assaults were perpetrated by entrusted members of the community, are often silenced, in some cases for decades or a lifetime. Statement added the church has cooperated with the investigation and that the, quote, willingness of the diocese to provide information was instrumental in the compilation of the report. Now, and then here's some examples of the criminals that were named. Vincent De Lorenzo, 84, Michigan priest who pleaded guilty to preying on a 5-year-old boy after a family funeral. So cool. Timothy Crowley, a priest in Ann Arbor, where the University of Michigan is, was sentenced to only a year in jail, 2 counts of second-degree criminal sexual conduct, a year in jail for that shit. They're trying to give Luigi life or death. Bishop Earl Boyea, head of the Diocese of Lansing, apologized to all the victims. My heart breaks for all the things that happened under my watch. It's a betrayal of Jesus Christ. Yeah, look at these. Look at these. Oh, yeah. And I'm so worried about the victims who were harmed physically, emotionally, but above all, spiritually, when they were so young. Shut the fuck up. I'm deeply sorry. Shut the fuck. You didn't do anything. You didn't say anything while it was happening. Come on. Anyway, the Christians are not okay. And the reason for all of this is their weird fucking backwards views on sex, sexuality, gender roles, all of that. It's crazy, man. If you're a Christian, you should really reconsider, not just because there's lots of bad people within the group, but think about why there's lots of bad people within the group. If the argument is that, oh, the structure of the church just draws predators to it, don't you create the structure? What's your fucking vetting process? What's your oversight? Huh? Oh, let's just happen. You know what else happens? This also happens in white Christian homes at higher rates than every other. How do you jive with that? Because you have weird fucking hangups about sex and sexuality. You don't express yourselves. You repress everything. You don't fucking, like, ever really get to explore your own sexuality or really even mature. And so you're trapped in this fucking, like, little mind game, and then it fucks some people up irrevocably. And then you fucking harm them, man. This shit's so crazy. Many such cases. This is just one of many reasons I'm an anti-theist. It makes people bad. You don't see cases of nuns doing this? Just saying. You do. Yes, you do. That's sorry. We actually do.